Good morning. Welcome to Connect Church. Thank you for taking the time to worship with us this morning. If you're just logging on, please share this. If you're on Facebook, that really helps us get traction. So if you'll share the post, it'll help it really get out there. If you're watching on YouTube, do us a favor. You can like it. And you also subscribe to our channel and you get other content as we put that out. Got lots of exciting things in store for today. I am grateful that you have taken the time to come and worship with us. We're talking about community, the importance of community, this second week in a series that we're calling Mastering the Art of Living. So let's do that today. Let's worship together.
Let's sing together, Connect Church. Who breaks the power? Who breaks the power? Sin and darkness, love and mighty, so much stronger. The King of glory, the King above all kings. Who shakes the whole earth with holy thunder? Who leads breathless and all in wonder? The King of glory, the King above all kings. This is amazing grace. Yeah. This is a fact and love. And you would take my place. Yeah. That you would bear my cross. Thank you, Lord. You would lay down your life, Jesus. That I would be set free. Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me. Yeah. Oh, Jesus, all you've done for me. Who brings our chaos back into order? Who makes the orphan a son and daughter? The King of glory, the King above all kings. Who rules the nations with truth and justice? Shines like the sun in all of his brilliance. The King of glory, the King above all kings. Yeah. This is amazing grace. Yeah. This is a fact and love. That you would take my place. That you would bear my cross. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. You laid down your life. That I would be set free. Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me. Sing, worthy is the Lamb. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Yeah, worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy, worthy, worthy. Yes, this is amazing grace. This is a fact and love. That you would take my place. done great things. We dance in your freedom, oh breaking the line. Oh Jesus, my Savior, your name lifted high. Oh God, you have done great things. Yeah, great things. You've been faithful through every storm. You'll be faithful forevermore. You have done great things, and I know you will do it again. For your promise is yes and amen. You will do great things. God, you do great things. Oh hero of heaven, conquer the grave. You free every captive and break every chain. Oh God, you have done great things. We dance in your freedom, awaken the light. Oh Jesus, Savior, your name lifted high. Oh God, you have done great things. Oh, hallelujah, God, above it all. Hallelujah, God, unshakable. Hallelujah, you have done great things. Yes, hallelujah, God, above it all. Hallelujah, God, unshakable. Hallelujah, you have done great things. You've done great things. You're hero of heaven, you conquer the grave. You free every captive and break every chain. Oh God, you have done great things. We dance in your freedom, awaken the light. Oh Jesus, my Savior, your name lifted high. Oh God, you have done great things. Yeah. You have done great things. Oh God, you do great things. Great things. Nothing can separate. Even if I run away, your love never fails. I know I still make mistakes, but you have your mercy for me every day. Your love never fails. Oh, you stay. You stay the same through the ages. Your love never changes. You may be cold in the night, but joy comes in the morning. And when the ocean rage, I don't have to be afraid, because I know that you love me. Your love never fails. Ooh, the wind is strong, the wind is strong and the water's deep. I'm not alone in these open seas, 'cause your love never fails. Oh, joy comes in the morning. And when the ocean rages, I don't have to be afraid, because I know that you love me. Your love never fails. Your love never fails. Oh, you make all things work together for my good. You make all things work together for my good. Yes, you make all things work together for my good. Yes, you do, Lord. You make all things work together for my good. Jesus, you make all things work together for my good. Yes, you do, Lord. You make all things work together for my good. And you stand strong creator. Your love never changes. Pain in the night, the joy comes in the morning. And when the ocean rages, I don't have to be afraid, 'cause I know that you love me. 'Cause your love never fails. Jesus, your love never fails. Oh. Thank you, Lord.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us. If you have a Bible, open it up to the book of 1 John. 1 John chapter 4. We're going to actually jump around a little bit, so I hope you have a Bible or maybe the Bible app. You have the Bible app. You can click on events, live events, and you'll find Connect Church there. You have to be kind of local for that. So if not, just go find a Bible and kind of follow along with us. While you're turning there, I want to kind of cover a couple of housekeeping items. First off, we're going to start something new this week. On Wednesday night, 7:30 p.m., we're going to be having a Zoom Bible study. I think that's one of the really positive things that's come out of this. I think a lot of us have kind of warmed up to some of the technological options that are there for us, especially with regard to Bible studies. So we're going to do that. It's going to start on Wednesday nights. We're going to do this every Wednesday night, kind of going through series. I'm calling this particular series Doctrine. And we're going to be looking at some important aspects. We're going to look at what it means to understand who God is. How do I know that God's real? How do I know that God loves me? if God's good, why do bad things happen in the world? Just a lot of different aspects like that. And we're going to work our way through some of the essential doctrines that we believe. This is going to take a really long time, so we're going to do this in installments. And the first installment will be about 4 or 5 weeks. It'll be on Wednesday night, beginning this Wednesday night, May 6th, 7:30 p.m. If you want to sign up for that, you can go to our Facebook page. There should be a logo there that says Doctrine, a Zoom Bible study. Hit that. There'll be an opportunity for you to sign up, and you'll just get a link that comes in your email box. Simply click on that. If you're not familiar with Zoom, it's super easy. If you're not familiar with that, I encourage you to do it on your laptop. It's just probably a simpler interface for you. And jump on about 7:30, and we'll get going from there. I hope you'll join us. Hope you'll be a part of that. So what I want us to talk about today, strangely enough, is community. I know in our environment, community seems like kind of an odd thing, because when we're sheltering in place, it's almost as if we're withdrawn from community, right? Well, here's the deal. Did you know that we were created to be relational? That's the way that God made us. We're wired up to be in connection with other people. I want us to kind of break that out a little bit. There's some research that was done several years ago by a guy named Edward Hallwell, senior lecturer at Harvard Medical School. And he wrote this. Here's what he said. For most people, the two most powerful experiences in life are achieving and connecting. And he goes on to say this: most of what grabs our attention, commands our energy, compels our help, falls into one of these two categories. Now, connecting obviously has to do with our relational world. That's things like falling in love, forming a deep friendship with someone perhaps, hearing words of affection or giving words of affection or affirmation. All that kind of falls under the category of connecting. Now, achieving, probably you and I intuitively know what that means. When we talk about achieving, that's like winning a contest. That's winning a race. That's getting a promotion at work. That's kind of getting ahead. And, I don't know about you, but I'm kind of wired up to be competitive anyway. I love just that competitive aspect of anything, whether we're playing tiddlywinks or golf or whatever it may be. I'm just pretty naturally a competitive person, so I really understand that drive to achieve. And if you're on the Enneagram, I'm a 3 on the Enneagram, so those of you that know Enneagram, you know what that means. So listen, I say all that to say I really resonate with what it means to be one who likes to achieve. Here's the deal. Here's what Howell found in his research. He goes on to point out this. He says that our society is increasingly devoted to, obsessed with, and enslaved to achieving. In fact, the scales are really imbalanced. If you look at it, if achieving and connectiveness is supposed to be in some kind of balance, that is no longer happening. In our society, what he's saying, what I think I agree with, is that we've become bent, obsessed with achieving, to the exclusion of having these connected relationships. We see that. That's apparent. We look at things like the dissolution of the family. You can look at the fact that we're more and more mobile. We're kind of going and coming, and, we just kind of go home and raise the garage door, park, close it, and go about our business. That's the way it is. And, we think that things like technology kind of opens more doors of connection, but the irony is that from a psychological standpoint, that technology really distances us from connectedness. We think we're more connected, but what we really have is a lot more shallow relationships. Because you go and you look at your Facebook profile, and we like to keep score and see how many friends we have on Facebook. Listen, I've got news for you. You don't have 1,233 friends, or you don't have 670 whatever friends that your Facebook profile says you have. You don't have that many friends in your life. They may be acquaintances or people that you've shared experiences with, but you don't share a deep connection with that many people. It's just not the way that we're wired up. So Howell kind of talks about how the achieving sidetracks us from our ability to connect with people relationally. Now, I don't want you to misunderstand me. Achieving is not a bad thing. In and of itself, there's nothing wrong with achieving. When you've done it for the right reasons, it's a good thing. But achieving is no substitute for community. So that's what I want us to unpack what I want us to unpack this morning. Here's the deal. I have never known anybody who failed at relationships but had a meaningful, joy-filled life. Not a single person. I've not known one person who's failed at relationships but had a meaningful, joy-filled life. In fact, you look back over the 20th century, and it's just littered with people who maybe accomplished a lot of stuff, made a lot of money, had a lot of achievements in their life, but when they fail relationally, they just bottom out. They're bankrupt emotionally. Now, the converse of that is true as well. I've never known anybody who succeeded at relationships, who cultivated great friends, who had a lot of meaningful connections, who were devoted to their families, who mastered the art of living, of giving, of loving and receiving love, that had a bad life. Never. Not a single person. I've not known anybody who has succeeded at those relationships and ended up having a bad life. It just doesn't work like that. See, God has wired us up to be connected. You were created for community. You were made for relational connectedness. You were designed by God to love and to be loved, to know and to be known, to serve and to be served, to celebrate and be celebrated. So here's what I want us to do. Kind of 3 ideas I want us to unpack under all of this. We're going to get to 1 John chapter 4 right here in a moment. The first thing is this. If you're taking notes, follow along with us. We are created for community, right? It's what I've been saying. God has made us, wired us for community. The Bible word for that's fellowship. That's not really a word that we use anymore, right? If you were to walk up on the street and use the word fellowship in a sentence with somebody else, it's almost hard to imagine how that would come out not sounding spiritual, because we've almost just assigned fellowship. That's a word that we only use like in church circles anymore. So that's not what that means. So we've kind of repurposed that word, and we use words like community. We say, we belong to, this is our tribe, these are our people. I think CrossFit's brought some of that language to us. But you know what that means? If you've ever belonged to a community of people, there's something about that connectedness that's really, really important. It's important that we understand what community is. And community means that we're invested in other people. And that happens by building into that relationship, by having conversations, by spending time together. We know how all that comes together. For example, let me say 2 guys show up at Lowe's, because apparently that's the only place you can have a conversation these days. Everybody seems to congregate at Lowe's. So let's just say you're passing somebody coming out of Lowe's as you were going in, and maybe you say to that person, hey, how are you doing? Or good morning, or good afternoon. And they would likely respond to you, doing great. Hope you're doing the same. And you might say, well, hope the Tide has a good year, or War Eagle, or something like that. And you'll share a couple of other exchanges, but chances are you're just going to go on your way and you're going to move on. I mean, we live in the South. Everybody's friendly. It's not uncommon to have a passing conversation like that. It happens pretty frequently for us, right? Now here's the deal. If I were to ask you, is that fellowship, is that community, is that investing in the life of another person? You say, well, no, that's not that. That was just a conversation. Right. That's a conversation. I think it's important that we understand that distinction. There are a lot of people in our life that we move through their life, they move through our life. We'll have passing conversations, but it never gets past this surface level stuff. You're not invested in their life. You're not walking with them through the depths and the tough times in their life, and they're not walking with you through theirs. And that's okay. We can't have deep relationships with however many friends Facebook says we have. Well, we're not wired up that way. We don't do that with like 1,000 people, but you do need to have some people in your life that you're invested in. Fellowship means that you're investing in the lives of others. Community means you're investing in the lives of other people. So the Bible has an interesting perspective on this, and it comes from 1 John. I want us to read that together. 1 John chapter 4, beginning in verse 19. The Bible says this. This is the NIV, by the way. We love because He first loved us. God first loved us. Whoever claims to love God but hates a brother or sister is a liar. For whoever does not love their brother and sister, whom they have seen, cannot love God, whom they have not seen. And he has given us this command: anyone who loves God must also love their brothers and sisters. You know, you hear a lot of people say, well, you know, I'm a Christian. I like Jesus. I believe in Jesus, but I just don't want to belong to a church. I don't want to belong to organized religion. And inevitably, when you kind of peel back the layers of that, what they're talking about is, you know, there are people that are in the church that, you know, they just don't get along with it. They don't like. Some people have this view, you know, church is just full of hypocrites. So for that reason, I don't want to be around organized religion. Listen, I don't want to be around organized religion either. That's not something that's appealing to me. In fact, if your idea of church is religion, you've got a misguided view of what the New Testament tells us community is supposed to be like. Because it's not organized religion. In fact, it's different. Instead of religion, you need to understand the word relationship, because God's wired us to be relational, right? To belong in community. So instead of religion, when we talk about relationships, we're supposed to be in relationship with God and in relationship with other people. That's what it means to be a part of community. You can't just opt out of God's family. It doesn't work like that. The church is where you live out what it means to be a Christian. The church is the place where you live out what it means to be a Christ follower. Now, the truth is, we live in a society today where people can kind of take a sampling of church just like they would take a sampling from a buffet. I'll get a little bit here, a little bit there, especially in this weird time. Probably today you could find 100 messages on Facebook or on YouTube or something like that, because we're all put in this position. But, you know, there are a lot of people that just kind of sample around, and they get their dose of faith that way, but they never allow themselves to be connected relationally on a deep level with other people. That's why community is so important. You can't separate the local church from community. Those two things have to go hand in hand. So important that we understand that God has wired us up for community. We were created for community. Let's go on. That's number one. Number two is this: belonging to a community means that we are called to share. Belonging to a community means that we were called to share. If you have your Bible, flip back to the book of Acts chapter 2. Acts chapter 2. We're going to look there in a moment. So I left that intentionally neutral. Belonging to a community means that we are called to share. I didn't say belonging to a Christian community. I just said a community. Any community, we have to understand the concept of sharing. Here's what I mean by that. For example, you could go and maybe to any nursery or just observe a group of toddlers together. What's the first most important lesson a toddler will have to learn? Anybody know? Other than potty training. Not talking about potty training. The first most important lesson they're going to have to learn in that circle of toddlers is to share, right? You have to do that. And it's hard. It's hard for toddlers to learn that concept of sharing, because we want to take it and say, this is mine, and we want to hold on to it. And honestly, it's difficult for adults sometimes to really open up and share. Sometimes, you know, we say, well, Keith, I'm just wired up differently. I'm an introvert. I don't want to do that. Doesn't really matter, because God still wired us up for community. I can be an introvert as well, and I get strength from times when I'm alone. That's when I kind of recharge my batteries. And maybe if you're an extrovert, you recharge your batteries by being around other people. All that's great. I think the introvert-extrovert argument kind of really goes to that, where you get your strength. But none of that is an excuse for saying, well, I just really don't want to be a part of community, because that's the way God made us. We're made for relationships. The Bible says you're created in God's image, and that means you are made for relationships. Here's what the Bible says in Acts chapter 2. I want us to read this together. This is an early church. If you don't know the background here, you can go to Acts chapter 2, and it's a really interesting study of what the very first church looked like. And here's what they had to say about these first believers that kind of gathered together. They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, to the fellowship, to the breaking of bread, and to the prayers. And all came upon every soul, and many wonders and signs were being done through the apostles. And all who believed were together and had all things in common. Now, I want you to notice two things here. Number one, you can't develop deep relationships without being together. All who believed were together. They weren't separated. They didn't go their different way. Listen, they were together. And that's essential. If you want to develop a deep relationship, you have to invest by being together. So the first thing, they were together. The second thing you see with this is they had all things in common. So they were together and they shared, right? That's why it's important that we understand belonging to a community means that we're called to share. So the obvious question is, okay, so if we have to share, what does that even mean? What are we supposed to be sharing with each other? Well, let's talk about that. What are we supposed to be sharing with each other? Well, several things. First of all, experiences. We share our experiences with each other. Here's what I mean by that. I think it's important that all of us are involved in a mentoring relationship. Now, it doesn't have to be all formal where you sit down and have a notepad, and take notes and that type of stuff. But I do think it's important that you have people in your life that are maybe a little further down the road than you are, where they can speak truth about their experiences to you. They can share from their experiences, and you'll learn from that. So you don't have to make some of the same mistakes over and over. Proverbs says, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. And that's kind of the image, if you think about it that way. You know, we sharpen each other, and we do that oftentimes by sharing our experiences with each other, right? There are tons of examples of things probably that we could share together. I just want to share a few with you. Here's another one. The Bible also says that we're to share our homes together. If you go on in Acts chapter 2 and get down to about verse 46, it says, and day by day, attending the temple together and breaking bread in their homes, they received their food with glad and generous hearts. Now, I'm not talking about, taking your keys out and giving it to somebody else and saying, I'm going to give you my home. That's not what I mean by sharing homes. Here's what I've learned from this in my time here at Connect. Early on here, as we moved into this building, we quickly outgrew the space. And we knew that if we were going to have adequate space to develop community, we're going to have to move out into the homes. So for space reasons, we just weren't able to do groups here on site. So we moved it into the homes. And a really interesting thing happened when we did that. We started to get reports of, I've really developed really deep relationships by doing this. And I think the secret sauce in that is this. If you are asked a lot of our life groups, they'll gather around a table. Maybe they'll share a little meal or share some time together, and then they'll open up God's Word and spend time studying the Bible. There's just something to be said about sitting around a table and sharing your experiences together and kind of going through life with each other in that respect. I think that's what we talk about when we say homes. Just bringing people into your life in that way. Because when somebody comes to your home, that you've moved beyond an acquaintance by somebody that you're just passing in Lowe's or something like that. And you've moved to a place where you're sitting down across the table and you're developing a relationship. So homes is another thing. So what else? What are we supposed to share? We're supposed to share life together. We're supposed to share life together. Hebrews says this, Hebrews chapter 10, 23 through 25. It says, let us hold fast to the confession of our hope without wavering, for he who promised is faithful. And let us consider how to stir one another to love and to good works, not neglecting to meet together as some in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near. Here's what I mean by life. As you're sharing life together, you're sharing maybe through the depths of a really difficult experience. Because I think oftentimes when we go through dark times, one of our first inclinations is to withdraw and just kind of to come back to ourselves. But the reality is we need that community around us. Now, chances are you may be watching this, and you may be in a great season in your life. Things may be going well. You may say, Keith, I feel like I'm on the top of the world right now. I know there are a lot of people sick. My health is good. I know a lot of people lost their jobs, still got my job. family's going well, and you kind of check all the boxes and say, well, it feels pretty good right now. Here's the deal. Chances are there's going to come a time or a season in your life, hopefully not soon, but sometime in the future. Just experience tells us that we're all going to go through that season where the storms kind of blow in on our life. And that's just a reality of it. And as we are invested in the lives of other people, that gives us an opportunity to walk with them and just share life. And sharing life sometimes means just sitting down and sharing this is something I'm struggling with, or just sitting down and just crying because you've lost a loved one, or you're just going through a difficult time. Sometimes we just need somebody else on the other side to sit down and be able to say, you know what, I hear you. I'm here for you, and I want to pray for you. It's really important that we understand that community can work itself out that way. Being in a community means that we're called to share. Don't forget about that. Let's move on. Here's the last thing I want to leave you with today, and it's this. Community is messy. Almost should be a disclaimer. I really feel like it, for full disclosure, I should start off with that and say, listen, it's messy sometimes. Church can be messy sometimes. That's just the reality. In our community, our struggle is not with people who've never heard the name of Jesus. I've had the privilege to be able to go overseas and be in places like in India where you can share the gospel, and you're talking to people that are hearing this for the very first time in their life, and there's just a feeling of like you're doing something amazing. You're sharing the gospel of Jesus. You're saying the name of Jesus, and this person is hearing and receiving that for the first time. There's something about that just can't be explained. But the truth is, in our environment, that's not really where we are. In fact, most people have heard Jesus, but for whatever reason, they're kind of done with the church. They just want to say, you know what, I'm done here. I don't want to, I like Jesus, but I don't like the church. Can't tell you how many times I've heard people say that. You see, here's the deal. In the Gospels, you get this picture of Jesus that's beautiful, that's compelling. Jesus is going out, he's healing people, he's feeding the multitudes, and it's just such an amazing picture of love and grace. Follow Jesus all the way to the cross and the tomb when he gets up on the third day. It's just such an amazing story of grace and love. And yet, when you flip out of the Gospels and you get into Paul's epistles, you start to see that Paul spent a good majority of his time trying to straighten things up. The church at Corinth, they just weren't getting it right. They were messing up on some things. And Paul had to say this to the church at Ephesus. And he's talking here at Philippi and all these different things. And Paul's kind of straightening out doctrine and saying, no, here's what you need to do. You need to do this. And the truth is, church has always been messy. Community has always been messy. It's so frustrating as a pastor because I've seen countless people walk away from church, oftentimes just because it's messy. It's like we have this false illusion that church is going to be a place where they're perfect people and that people have it all together. And I think we do ourselves a disservice sometimes. We like to pretend that that's the case. We put on our mask and come into church and want to make sure that we project this image that we got it all together. But the truth is that the church is just full of people that they're broken, they're hurting, and many of whom are just going through oftentimes the most difficult season in their life. That's what makes it messy. We make it messy. Jesus makes it beautiful, and we make it messy. And it'll always be like that. And that's just a reality. And people say, I love Jesus, I just don't like the church. I don't know if you know this or not, but in the New Testament, Jesus calls the church the bride. We're called the bride of Christ. So when you say, I like Jesus, but I don't like the church, that would be like going up to one of your most trusted friends, somebody that you're in a deep relationship with, and just saying to that person, brother, listen, I love you, I just can't stand your wife. How's that going to go? How's that going to play out? If I did that to one of my friends, if I'm not, knocked over or decked over, when I get up, chances are we're not going to be friends very long. Why? Because that just doesn't work. You can't be in a deep relationship here and not there. It just, inevitably all that's just going to fall apart. And the church and Jesus are forever just they're linked together in a way that it's a beautiful thing. Listen, I fully believe that the church is the last great hope of the world. We look around, there's so much negativity in the headlines and so many bad things going on. I believe the church is the hope of the world. And even in the middle of all that's going on right now, I believe that God still has something miraculous in store for the church. I believe that there's still room for a great revival to take place. Not just here in Guntersville, Alabama, but around the world. I believe that God is still calling people to himself. And I think it all happens through the work of the local church. So the question is, well, okay, and how can this work? What's this even going to look like? How could this even work for me? I want to just give you three things. I'm going to close. I'm going to stop. Three things there I think are important. Maybe you're listening to this, and maybe this is like your story. Maybe you've been in church in the past, but you find yourself in a season of life right now where you're just not connected. You're not connected to a local body of believers. You still consider yourself a believer. You still consider yourself a Christian, but you know that aspect of community is just missing. So I want to challenge you to walk through the Gospels and see how important it is for these things to fit together. Here's how I believe it could work. Here's how I believe church could work for you. The first thing I would say is this: change your expectation. Change your expectation. Church is not a place that's filled with perfect people. In fact, the opposite is true. Church is just full of broken people who are striving and are trying their best to follow Christ. And the church messes up sometimes. Man, I get that. I totally get that. But if you would change your expectation and just say, you know what, I know I'm not going to find perfect people there, and I know I'm going to find people that are broken just like me. It changes our mind a little bit, so we're better able to step into that. So if we just resign ourselves to the fact that we're not going to find a perfect place that's full of perfect people, that's just never going to happen. You need to serve God where God has you. If you're not involved in a local church right now, listen, I encourage you, find a local church in your community that you can plug into and be a part. Really important. So change your expectation, change your mindset a little bit. The second thing, give grace. Man, give grace frequently. One of the lessons I learned, it seems that as I get older and older, the more I really appreciate what grace truly means. There was a time in my life when I was really a box checker, and I'm still, to this day, I'm a rule follower, and that's probably the way I've been initially, but I've just learned the value of grace in my life. I have a good friend that says quite frequently, he says, I'm not concerned about standing before a holy God one day and hearing him say, you know what, I think you gave a little bit too much grace in that situation. He said, but I am concerned about one day standing before a holy God and hearing him say, you know what, just in this situation right here, I really wish you would have shown a little bit more grace. Let's err on the side of grace. Let's show people grace in all our dealings. Just understand, we're all broken. So let's just start with that common understanding that we're broken people and we need to show grace, we need to give grace, and we need to receive grace sometimes. And the last thing, number 3, is just love. Love. That sounds really simple. Keith, that sounds awfully vague, just love. What do you mean by that? Here's what I mean. There's a story in the Gospels, told in several of the Gospels. A lawyer comes up to test Jesus. Now, if you know anything about the Pharisees, the Sadducees, kind of the religious elite, man, they were box checkers to the 10th degree. I mean, they followed all the rules, checked all the boxes. So this lawyer comes up, and he's trying to trap Jesus. And he says, teacher, tell us, what's the greatest commandment? And all he's doing is trying to kind of pull Jesus into a controversy. But Jesus answers him in such a brilliant way, such a total Jesus way. Here's what Jesus says. This is his response. The lawyer says, what's the first and greatest commandment? Jesus said, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and great commandment. And then he goes on to say, and the second is like it. You shall love your neighbors yourself. Isn't that cool? The lawyers trying to corner Jesus and drag him into controversy. What's the most important commandment? Is it the amount of steps you can take on the Sabbath, or what you can eat, or this or that, or one of the 10 commandments? What do you think it is? And Jesus said, no, it's really a lot simpler than that. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. That's the first and greatest commandment. So when I say love God. Love God. Invest in your relationship with God. Maybe focus less on achievements and more on that relationship with God. Invest time intentionally getting in God's Word, building, nurturing that relationship. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, with all your mind. That's the first and greatest commandment. Here's the second one. Love your neighbors yourself. Love your neighbors yourself. Jesus is asked essentially just to boil it all down to what's the most important thing. He said, all right, I'll tell you. Love God and love your neighbor as much as you love yourself. You know, I think that's a message that we need to hear today, especially in this day and age. And, you know, we're really living in a partisan day and age. We divide ourselves over all sorts of things. We used to laugh, you know, you got Alabama fans and Auburn fans. But, man, it's not Alabama-Auburn. It's Alabama-Auburn, Democrats, Republicans, people that live in the East, people live in the West, people live in the North, the South. We found a million ways to divide ourselves. And I think what might be helpful is if we just rally back to this point and say, you know what? Why don't I focus more on love? Focusing on me loving God. I'm going to focus on my relationship with God, and I'm going to focus on loving people. And I believe if just God's people, if God's church would just focus on this clear mandate that Jesus has given us to love and love well, wow, what a difference it would make in the year 2020. Of all the things that we could focus on today, I give you this. Let's focus on loving each other, being invested in biblical community. And Jesus says this, by this, all men will know that you are my disciples, by the love that you show for each other. Let's love each other well. Pray with me. God, we're so grateful that you first loved us. We're grateful for Jesus, that he came, that he lived, that he died on the cross so that we can have eternal life. God, we're grateful for the gospel. I pray this morning, maybe for a brother or sister that's listening to this, that's watching. Maybe they're out of community. Maybe there's been a time in their life where they made a decision to follow you, but for whatever reason, they've just kind of stepped off the path of community. God, I pray that just through a series of miraculous relationships, God, that you might bring them back, that you may surround them with people in their life that can love them, that can encourage them, that can walk with them. God, I pray that there's one that's listening today, watching maybe for the first time, and they've not even heard this message of love. God, that you loved us so much that you sent Jesus to die on the cross for our sins. God, that today could be the day of salvation. Thank you that you first loved us. Help us to love you and to love each other well. And we pray it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Worthy of every song we could ever sing, worthy of all the praise we could ever bring, worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you, Jesus. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. We live for you. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside. sing worthy. Worthy of every song we could ever sing. Worthy of all the praise we could ever bring. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. We live for you. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. We live for you. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. You open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. Jesus, thank you for your love. Thank you that it is a solid rock that we can build our lives upon. I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation. I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. I will build my life upon your life. It is a firm foundation. I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. You open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation. I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation. I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation. I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken.
Well, thank you for worshiping with us today. Community is really important, and I hope that's a takeaway that that you're going to walk away with from this message, the importance of being involved in community. If you're not involved in a community, I encourage you to do that. Wherever you are, find a church that you can get involved in that teaches the Bible and stresses the importance of community. A couple things before we leave today. First off, as we continue in the act of giving, you can share your tithes and offerings. There should be a giving link at either the top or bottom of the post, depending on if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube. You can hit that link and share your gift there. That allows us to continue to do ministry during this time. And also, if you're new, if you're a guest with us, there's a guest card. You could click that. Would love to have your information so that we can connect with you as well. If you're interested in being involved in a Bible study, we're starting a Zoom Bible study this Wednesday night, 7:30 p.m. You can sign up if you'll just look on our Facebook page, Connect Church. You'll find a link that you can click on and give you an opportunity to sign up. I hope you do that, and I hope to see you Wednesday night.